in a little minute. Okay, so thank you so much for joining us today on this learning event for you all, for multi-agency practitioners. My name's Corinne Chidley, and I'm the Learning and Development Coordinator for Shropshire Safeguarding Community Partnership. And I'm going to be facilitating the information that you're going to be receiving with my colleagues, Lisa and Rachel, who I will introduce in a little bit. Okay, so firstly to say, just please turn off your video and mic because we've got so many people joining. It's important that you can see the screen that I'm sharing throughout, as what's being shown to you will change often. So if your screen gets stuck, please log off and log back in again. And just a reminder that this event is being recorded. Please feel free to use the chat. We're not going to ask you specific questions where you'll need to use the chat, but if you want to know a specific question, then please feel free to pop that in the chat, and we'll either be able to answer it now or answer it later. So please use the chat if you would like to. So the most important thing is that you really prioritise this 2-hour learning event. Please ensure that you've turned your emails off and you're not doing other work. We are talking this morning about the circumstances surrounding the deaths of 2 people that lived in Shropshire. And we can all learn from this and reflect on our practice. And so the content really does deserve your full attention. So the message is, please be here now. We are recording this event so that you can revisit parts of it and so that it will be available to our colleagues who were unable to attend, so that you can participate fully. Every time we ask you a question, your answers will remain anonymous, and we're going to ask you to respond via Mentimeter. And you don't need to sign in, you just follow the link or scan the QR code and you will be able to respond. So I've already been asked about the resources. So you can find the resources via Eventbrite. So you can see that there's a little hyperlink there, and there's also the QR code. Now that is on Eventbrite, and that's how you've all logged in today. And this will take you to a Padlet. So let me just show you. The Padlet looks like this. And Lisa is going to put the Padlet link into the chat for you. And if you copy and paste that somewhere, you will be able to go to that Padlet forever, and I will update it. Handouts 6 and 7 are updated several times a year. I will update those for you. You can see that we are going to be talking about 2 people today. We're going to be talking about Ian and Lily. Their stories and their scripts are there. And handout 1 is really, really important, because handout 1 is where all the links for the local resources, for the national resources, and for the videos, they are all on handout 1. And on the screen, you will see, like in the top left-hand corner, you've got where it says handout 1. I call it my little homemade post-it note. So on the screen, you will see which handout you will be able to find more information about what we're talking to, and that's right the way through the morning. And for those of you in a room, there's 5 of you together, and that is absolutely wonderful. Please, whoever's got access to the computer, please just share that link with all your colleagues, the Padlet link that Lisa's put in the chat, and you will be able to have access to that. So hopefully that makes complete sense. If anything doesn't make sense, if you want to know more, please just ask specific questions in the chat. If we can answer them, we will. And if we can't answer them, we'll also let you know that, and maybe it will be a signposting exercise. Okay, so let us talk about the types of self-neglect. So, self-neglect is a recognised form of adult abuse, and it's an issue that affects people from literally every background that you can think of. The term self-neglect covers a wide range of behaviour, neglecting to care for one's personal hygiene, health, or surroundings. And there are two types of self-neglect. There is intentional or active self-neglect, and that's when a person makes a conscious choice to engage in self-neglect. So, for example, they may actively refuse to visit a doctor when they're feeling unwell. And that is just, I could give you 1,000 examples, and that is just one. Then there is non-intentional or passive self-neglect. And that is very much when health-related conditions contribute to a risk of developing self-neglect. For example, a person with a learning disability may have lapses in concentration, and that may make them forget to attend to their personal hygiene. Again, we could give you 1,000 examples, but that is just one, one little example. And just before I put the next slide on, I'm going to give you a trigger warning because the images used may well be triggering. So, trying to understand what lies behind self-neglect is complex. And a person who self-neglects can live life in a way that may also impact on other people, whether that's in a house where other adults or children live, or on friends, relatives, and neighbours in the community. Now, often the person who is self-neglecting may be unwilling to recognise that there might be a problem, and they may not be open to receiving support to improve their circumstances. However, the issue for you all is that allowing a person to self-neglect without intervention or support could be considered as an admission in care and or support. And today we will cover some of the issues and ways to work with people. So what causes self-neglect? There is not a simple answer to this question. So self-neglect is complex. It's so complex, and it can be a result of many and multiple things, including a person's brain injury, dementia or other mental disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder or hoarding disorder, physical illness, which influences abilities, energy levels, attention span, organizational skills, or motivation. Addictions, or as a result of trauma stemming back to childhood or a traumatic life change. So, I mean, you cannot do this subject justice in the few minutes that I've taken, but what I would like to ask you to do is either scan the QR code with a mobile device or click on the link that Lisa's put into the chat and share your experiences of self-neglect. Your responses, remember, are anonymous. The first question is about self-care and the second question is about the environment, but you won't be able to go on to the second question until I show it on the screen. So please just be patient. Okay, so I'm getting your results in. Now, what I want to do is share this. My goodness, this is really, really interesting. I'm just going to share it on the screen for you. So you can see here your results there, and there's more results coming in. When we are looking at neglect of self-care, you can see that poor nutrition, diet, hydration, and an example of that might be there's little or no fresh food or mouldy food in the fridge. And in any area of nutrition and diet and hydration, there could be so many examples. Poor personal hygiene, which impacts on health. When we're looking, failing to provide self-care, the one at the bottom left, we might see physical well-being rapidly decline, not just declining, but rapidly declining. And when we're looking at refusing social care or domiciliary or medical support or treatment, that could include failure to attend appointments, allowing entry for assistance with single or double incontinence, for example, the healing of sores, not allowing people to support with that, not taking medication, not engaging with mental health support services. There's so many of them, so many of them. And we can see that there is a lot of experience in the room. So what I'm just going to share with you now, let's have a look at the neglect of the domestic examples of the domestic environment that you've come across. You will be able to share now. Can you still all see that and answer that question? I'll just leave you a minute to oh, still says waiting for the next slide. How weird. Because there is the next slide. Okay, so what we can do is put the go back to the hyperlink in the chat. Because what it should do, and what it did in practice, is let you answer. Didn't change it. Oh, how disappointing. Let me try it like this. Wow, that is disappointing. It's clearly not working for anybody. Has that made any difference? Oh, it's there now. Fantastic. The best plans, hey? So we can see your votes coming in thick and fast. And there's very few people who haven't experienced neglect of the domestic environment. You can see that many of you have. And when we're talking about hoarding and excessive clutter, um, there's the creating potential mobility hazards as well as fire hazards. And when we're talking about animal collecting, um, in addition to the examples there, it's with potential of insanitary conditions, as well as neglecting an animal's needs. And then refusing support from or entry to organisations that have got an interest in the property or community, housing, utility companies, environmental health, fire safety. There's an awful lot of you that have got experience in so many of those areas. Okay, I'm sorry about the delay in that, but thank you very much sharing your experiences. So as we begin to understand the circumstances of the lives and ultimately the deaths of the two people we're all here for, we're going to ask you to think about and make a note of what keeps you awake at night. And just think at what point that if you were working in any capacity with these people, you wouldn't be able to sleep. So I am going to introduce Rachel Evans to you. Rachel is the author of the first Safeguarding Adult Review, who's going to introduce the person and their circumstances to you.
Thank you, Corinne, and to everyone attending today's event to hear what we learned from the reviews undertaken and the actions needed to prevent similar circumstances from happening again. Meet Ian. Ian's marriage ended in divorce in 1995 when he was 44. The police report stated that alcohol consumption was felt to be a factor in the separation. The dates in Ian's story will always be shown at the top of your screen. When Ian's son left university, they met up once a year. Ian owned his own home and he lived alone. Ian worked in banking and took early retirement when he was 46. Although Ian was popular and personable, when he retired, concerns started about self-neglect in relation to his personal care. When Ian was 50, he no longer had any electric, water or gas supplied to his house. When Ian was 54, he held a number of other jobs, including working at a local car retailer, in a number of pubs, and then for the Royal Mail. When Ian was 60, his employer raised a concern to the police. Police visited but could not initially gain access until they found the back of the house was insecure. Ian told the police that he was off work due to arthritis and disclosed that he had no friends or family, telephone or transport. Police shared concerns with adult social care, but Ian was not open to them. Police also made a referral to Ian's GP, who spoke to him. Ian confirmed that he would use a payphone to contact his GP if needed. Ian stopped working for the Royal Mail when he was 64. When Ian was 66, a member of the public raised concerns about his welfare to the police and shared these concerns. The police shared these concerns with adult social care. This resulted in a hospital admission as Ian's mobility was poor, he had limited food and water, and his home conditions were considered to be unsafe. Hoarding was significant, and this prevented Ian from cooking and washing. Support was provided over a period of months which included a deep clean and the clearance of his home. Ian's bathroom was cleared and deep cleaned. After a few months, Ian's case was closed to adult social care. It was expected that Ian would arrange to have his utilities reconnected following these interventions. However, this did not happen. Instead, Ian carried on living with no utilities in insanitary conditions, and he began hoarding items again. The COVID pandemic had a significant impact upon Ian. Lockdowns prevented Ian from being able to use the facilities at pubs, which had been part of his daily routine. Pubs had provided him with companionship, food, drinks, washing, and toilet facilities. During the first COVID lockdown, the adult social care team arranged a welfare visit to Ian in recognition that he relied on pubs and cafes for meals, use of washing facilities, and social interaction. The pubs were now closed. There was no further information in relation to any outcomes from this visit. In January, when Ian was 70, a concern was raised to adult social care by a local shopkeeper about Ian's self-neglect, health, and well-being. This resulted in some contact with adult social care and the doctors. However, both agencies had difficulties engaging with Ian, who responded by saying that he was fine, did not require support, and that he would make contact if he did need support. A safeguarding concern was raised and subsequently closed with the advice to follow the local procedure flowchart in the self-neglect guidance. In April, it was recorded within Ian's adult social care case closure transfer notes that there will be ongoing work to support Ian and to obtain access to the property. It confirms that Ian's situation is recorded on the hoarding forum spreadsheet. It did not, however, specify who this would be allocated to. A month later, the adult social care area bi-monthly meeting was held. During the meeting, the hoarding risk information on the spreadsheet relating to Ian was reviewed. Then the extent of Ian's situation became apparent. This led to the manager accessing Ian's records and determining that a more robust response was required. Sadly, this was too late, as 4 days later, Ian was found dead. His death was considered to be of a natural cause. Concerns in relation to self-neglect, which initially related to personal care, dated back some 23 years, around the time of Ian's initial retirement from banking. At the time of Ian's death, his home was insecure and there was evidence of hoarding and insanitary living conditions. He had lived without the essential utilities of gas, electric and water for at least 20 years. I'll hand you back to Corinne.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing those circumstances of Ian's death with us. Hopefully, you've all had a chance to make a note of anything that stood out to you, any key moments in Ian's circumstances that would be helpful to share with colleagues during supervision or in team meetings. And when we cover the learning, the multi-agency learning, you'll have the chance to compare the findings to your notes. And I'm just going to pause just for a minute to allow you to discuss with people in the room or jot some things down.
Is it a TA unit?
Okay, thank you. So what I'm going to do now is introduce Lisa Gardner. So Lisa is the author of the second Safeguarding Adult Review, and she's going to introduce the person and their circumstances to you all. And this is longer. This is longer, and we tried to be as succinct as possible, but we literally could not leave the detail out because it all helps to build the picture.
I believe Corinne found that picture of me on a wanted poster, and we'll have to have a chat about that later. Okay, thank you everybody for coming today, and I'd like you to meet Lily. It's 2019 and she is 34. The dates in Lily's story will always be shown at the top of the screen as we move through and talk about what happened. So Lily had complex mental health needs and had been known to services since her childhood. Lily's neighbour became concerned for her well-being on the morning of the 10th of October after she'd spent a long period of time shouting and throwing things at the wall in her property. The neighbour contacted the police explaining that Lily had mental health issues and that this behaviour was something that happened often. At the time of the call, there were no available officers to attend, but later that day, 2 police community support officers visited Lily's property on 2 occasions. Lily did not answer the door on either of those occasions. Police shared this information with Sevenside Housing, who were Lily's landlords. The following day, another police community support officer visited Lily's property. They noted that there was a light on, but there was no response when they knocked on the front door. The neighbour who had raised the original call was contacted, and they said that they were out at that time, but would call if they heard Lily when they returned home. Later that day, the neighbour called the police again to say that Lily was alone in her house and was again screaming and shouting. Just a warning here around the language, so apologise. A few hours later, in the early hours of the morning, the same neighbour called as they could hear Lily shouting, "Nobody fucking cares." No officers were deployed at the time, as it was well documented that this behaviour was a regular occurrence for Lily, and there was no information to suggest that she was a danger to herself or others. Late morning, Lily's neighbour rang the police yet again to say that Lily had smashed a window and was again shouting and screaming. A police community support officer was allocated to attend. Again, there was no reply from inside the property when they arrived, but it was noted that there was a smashed inner panel on one of the windows at the front of the property. Sevenside Housing were concerned about Lily's mental health and well-being, so 2 days later they went with the local police community support officer to visit Lily. She became very, very distressed by their presence and refused the support that was being offered to her by Sevenside. Due to her heightened state at at that time, an ambulance was called. The police community support officer also called back to the police station to ask for further assistance. When the ambulance crew arrived, Lily was verbally abusive and refused all assessments. The ambulance crew documented that Lily had mental capacity. This was based on conversations that took place on the scene with Lily and other agencies that were present. The police attempted to get Lily to engage with the mental health access team on the phone, but she refused to do so. The ambulance crew called the mental health social work team on advice from the crisis team, as they didn't have an open referral for Lily, and it was noted that Lily had an allocated social worker. The ambulance crew were unable to speak to Lily's social worker as she was on annual leave, and so they called the crisis team back. The crisis team advised the ambulance crew, police and Sevenside housing staff to leave Lily's property, as she had been known to calm if left, and that they would contact Lily via the phone 30 minutes later to check on her. The police officer who attended Lily's home that day recorded an adult protection investigation, which was forwarded to the harm assessment unit for consideration. The report was reviewed by the harm assessment unit, who decided that no onward referral was required. And this was because Lily had repeatedly refused help, and the crisis team had advised that they would contact her after 30 minutes. So the most appropriate agency was present and aware, and there was no requirement for police to share the information. When the crisis team attempted to call Lily after 30 minutes, they did not get a response, so 2 mental health nurses attended the property. The police had called an ambulance, as the neighbour had called again to say that Lily was chucking things at her window and shouting at herself to herself yet again. Police felt that the ambulance service were the most appropriate service to respond to that situation. The crisis team and ambulance crew were unable to gain access to Lily's property, as she would not answer the door to them. She was inside shouting and throwing things, and when they knocked on the door, she ran upstairs. The ambulance crew called the police for assistance to enter the property, but they were advised to attempt to persuade Lily to let them in the first instance, and if she began to make threats, then they were to call the police back. No observations were taken, and a formal assessment of capacity could not be completed, as neither the crisis team or the ambulance crew could enter the property. They left after 30 minutes. Lily was upstairs in her property and appeared to be quiet. On the following 2 days, Adult Social Care Mental Health Team received 2 emails from Midlands Partnership Foundation Trust, Crisis Team and Psychosis West Team to say that Lily had been allocated for assessment due to her being on cluster 12 for assessment. So this relates to ongoing and recurring psychosis. Cluster 12 is a system of different pathways to be used dependent upon the type of presenting problems and diagnosis a person may have. So telephone calls were made to Lily, but she didn't answer, and she was also offered an appointment with the Psychosis West team for an assessment of her mental health, but Lily did not attend this appointment. On the last day of October, Lily attended the local police station her local police station, saying that she wanted to report historical mental and physical abuse by family members. She was very, very distressed. Lily wanted to talk to a police officer, but there was no one available to speak to her at that time. The front desk clerk spoke with Lily and arranged for her to attend the police station 2 days later, when she would be able to speak to a police officer. An officer called Lily on the phone on the evening 2 days later, and she seemed very confused. No further details are recorded. The officer then attended Lily's property, and she did not answer the door and instead spoke to them through the window. Lily told him to go away, and he explained that he was there because of the report that she'd made at the police station. Lily said she did not know what he was talking about and repeated that she wanted him to leave. The officer recorded on an incident log that Lily had been safe and well, and therefore he had no powers to enter her property. He also recorded an adult protection investigation, as Lily seemed very confused on arrival and did not wish to speak to police. She has obvious mental health and learning difficulties. An adult risk assessment was also recorded as medium risk. This was because although she was safe and well, there was broken glass in the window and the living room was scattered with litter. The incident was flagged with the Harm Assessment Unit, who shared the following information with Shropshire Council's Adult Safeguarding and Midlands Partnership NHS Foundation Trust. Lily has care and support needs requiring practical, financial or emotional support for adults who need extra help to manage their lives and be independent. During the first week of December, Lily was closed to both Psychosis Pathway West and Adult Social Care Mental Health Social Work team, as neither had been able to find a way to engage her in either assessment or services that they could provide. And the GP was advised of this, but advised of both closures by letter. In March of 2020, Shropshire Council's mental health social work team were notified by Sevenside Housing that Lily was refusing to allow them access to the property to carry out property compliance checks. And due to this and their concern that there was damage to property, they asked for support to engage Lily to prevent the need for them to go to court to gain access to seek possession. In March, several members of the mental health social work team attempted to make contact with Lily in conjunction with a member of the Sevenside Housing Compliance team. They tried various ways for several months due to safety checks and an inspection of the property needed to be carried out. Towards the end of April, police received a 999 call from Lily's neighbours reporting that Lily was having a meltdown. She was throwing things through the window and the neighbours could hear things being smashed in the property. When police officers arrived at Lily's property, she refused to allow them in and was shouting and saying that she wanted to be left alone. Lily moved to the back of the property, meaning that officers couldn't see her, and this caused them concern for her safety due to her heightened state of agitation and distress. One officer climbed up onto the balcony of the property and could see into the bedroom. There was broken furniture, splintered wood, and general untidiness. Lily opened the patio doors and engaged with the officer, so no forced entry was required. West Midlands Ambulance was also on the scene during this time. Lily told the police officer that she did not want to be checked by the ambulance crew. She said that she had no intention of hurting herself and that she did not want any help from the police. The crisis team were called, but Lily did not wish to speak to them at that time. An adult protection investigation was flagged for the Harm Assessment Unit, who decided that no referrals were required. Lily did not wish for any assistance, no suggestion or indication that she was mentally unwell. There was no details of any support workers for her, and she has the details of the crisis team if it was needed. At the beginning of September, Lily contacted the Access team as she was upset and distressed. She had wanted to speak to the crisis team, but was told that she was not open to them and therefore needed to speak to the Access team. Reluctantly, Lily agreed to this. When Lily was called back an hour later, she explained that she was not suicidal or self-harming. She was asked to answer some more questions, but Lily refused to do so, saying that she did not want to talk anymore, and she put the phone down. Several attempts were made to call Lily back, and a text message was sent asking her to make contact if she wished to continue with her referral for mental health services. Further attempts were made to call Lily, and she answered saying that she did not want to talk with anybody anymore. The next day, the Access team tried again to contact Lily to see if she would like to talk to them, but there was no response to their call. They also sent a letter to her home address requesting contact from her within the next 7 days. Six days later, the mental health social work team received a 25-page double-sided A4 letter, handwritten letter from Lily. This letter contained extensive information about Lily, her friends and her family, but it was difficult to understand and it did not appear to be in any order. It was very erratic. It contained allegations about named people and disclosures of abuse that Lily had suffered. It also asked that someone do something to help her family who lived in a nearby county, and a copy of this letter was shared with the Access team. A concern for welfare call was made the following day by a neighbour who said that they had not seen Lily for several days. A week after Lily sent the letter, 2 mental health social work team workers went to visit Lily at her property. They informed her that they had made the necessary referrals to help her family and that these had been accepted. Lily did not verbally respond in any way. She sat cross-legged on the floor writing in a notebook. The workers continued to try to engage with Lily through the window, but she remained silent. 4 days after the concern for welfare call that was made by the neighbour, a police community support officer was dispatched to Lily's address. When they arrived, they found that the back door was open and they entered to find Lily was lying on the sofa. Lily looked like she had been sick, but said that she was okay. She did not want the police community support officer there, and the support officer left. No adult protection incident was created from that. In October of 2020, the GP was contacted by someone from the Department of Work and Pensions as they'd received a letter from Lily which contained accusations of childhood abuse and murder. The GP assured them that this was untypical patterns of behaviour for Lily and that she and those around her were safe and well. The surgery did not share this with either the Mental Health Social Work team or Midlands Partnership NHS Foundation Trust. Between March and September, several members of the mental health social work team had attempted to make contact with Lily using a variety of communication methods to gain entry to the property. They did this in conjunction with the Sevenside Housing Compliance team. In total, there were 5 phone calls, 8 text messages, 3 letters and 9 visits to the property, including weekly visits due to safety checks and an inspection of the property to be carried out. Also between October and February, there were continued joint attempts by the Sevenside Housing Compliance Officer and the Mental Health Social Work team support worker, to try and communicate with Lily and gain entry to the property. And this did include weekly visits from the compliance officer. And this was again because the safety checks and the inspection of the property needed to happen. Due to the communication with Lily by Sevenside and the mental health social work team having been unsuccessful, court proceedings paperwork was filed at the beginning of March. This had been delayed, was delayed because of the COVID pandemic. 2 weeks later, the court confirmed that Sevenside could force entry to the property to complete the safety checks and the work that was required. During April, the compliance officer made several visits and explained through the window to Lily what was going to happen and what the court the court order meant and what decisions had been made. This information was also sent by post as it was required by law. Lily did not respond to any of these. Towards the end of April, the compliance officer returned with an electrician who was going to install an isolator switch. Entry to the property had to be forced, and Lily was very distressed by this. She shouted at the workman and ran upstairs. The compliance officer sat on the stairs and explained everything that was happening to Lily as it was happening, and this did seem to calm her, and she responded reasonably. Prior to any work being done, the compliance officer and mental health support worker would visit Lily to prepare her for it. In July, Lily let the compliance officer and another electrician in. The compliance officer explained that this is the best she'd seen Lily. She advised of issues that needed repairing, allowed the electrician to go upstairs and take photos of the damp that had happened following issues from a leak, and agreed to them sending someone to do these repairs. Lily was reasonably communicative throughout the 3 to 4 hour visit. In September, the compliance officer visited Lily's property with an operative to measure the window that needed to be replaced. Lily asked them not to go into the property as their mental health was bad, and the operative said that he could measure the window from outside. Lily was grateful for that, and the window was measured, and they left. On the 8th of November, the police received a call from Lily's neighbour saying that they had not heard from or seen her for a while. They had walked past her window, walked past her property the day before, and there were flies in the window and there was an awful smell. Police attended the property and found Lily deceased. It appeared that she had been there for some time given the level of decomposition. The conditions of the property were described as poor, with food containers and half-drunk sugary drinks on the floor next to her body. There was also full buckets of fluid, which officers believed to have been vomit or urine. There was an inquest into Lily's death, and the coroner recorded that she died at the age of 36 of unascertained cause in unknown circumstances. I'll hand back to Karen.
Thank you, Lisa. So it feels like I don't want to carry on, really. It feels like we need to give a moment to Lily. Just a reminder to those of you that might have joined late, we ask everyone to turn their cameras off because there's so many people on the call, and also we're recording this event to make it available for you to access at a later date, and for those people who couldn't attend, for them to access it as well. So thank you, Lisa, and once again I hope you've had the chance to make a note of anything that stood out to you, any key moments in Lily's circumstances that would be helpful to share with colleagues during supervision or in team meetings. And when we cover the learning, you'll have the chance to compare the findings to your notes. So what can we learn? That was very quick. What can we learn? So what Lisa's going to do is pop a hyperlink into the chat, or you can follow the QR code. And this is about your awareness of the safeguarding adult review process in Shropshire. And there are 6 questions and you can choose multiple answers. Remember that it's completely anonymous, but it would be really helpful if you could answer that question. Answer those questions, please. And if there's, so we can get a true picture, if as many of you could respond as possible, that would be very helpful. Okay, so I'm just going to share this on my screen for you to see. Please, feel free to still send your answers in. There's quite a few more people. But isn't this interesting? So if we look at the very last one, there are, if we just do a comparison of how many people had come across neglect, self-neglect, whether that be of their own person or the environment or refusal to services, there are a large proportion, a quarter of people that haven't read a learning briefing or safeguarding adult review. And that's the last question. So lots of people are aware of it. I know how to find, people know how to find it. Some people have read it, read the learning briefings. More people have read the adult safeguarding reviews. And what is really comforting to know is that practice has changed because of the information that you learned about. So that is really, really good to know. So not everybody was able to access Mentimeter, but there will be another couple of chances to look. But thank you very much for doing that. So you'll notice that up until now, we've been referring to Ian. Rachel was the author of Ian's Safeguarding Adult Review. And the actual Safeguarding Adult Review refers to him as Mr. I. But we actually felt that it is more human to give a name. So we chose a name that began with I. It's not his real name. But we were much more comfortable talking about Ian than Mr. I most of the way through. On the SSCP website, you will find the multi-agency learning briefing, and you will find the link to that. It's on both handout 1, which has got all the links on, and handout 2, which is the script for Ian's circumstances. Now, there are 8 multi-agency learning points on that one, and it carries on because there are 16 altogether. And if you have not read this, we are going to go through the multi-agency learning, don't worry. But they are really useful to look at. And then, of course, we have Lily. So Lily, the link to Lily's Safeguarding Adult Review, and also to the learning briefing that you can see here, that is on handout 1, and handout 4 is Lily's script for her circumstances. So please do access those from the handouts. So what I'm going to share with you is some restricted information, and we're sharing this as part of the learning event as a snapshot in time. Now, each of the boxes that I'm going to show you, it's really important that we remember that they represent a person that has died in Shropshire. So these purple boxes represent safeguarding adult reviews that have been published. And there are several indicators of self-neglect in its various guises: mental health and refusal of services. And when you read them more, we could give you many more examples. So the green boxes represent the current domestic homicide reviews that are being undertaken. Now the blue boxes here represent safeguarding adult reviews that are currently being undertaken. And there's more. There's orange ones here. The orange boxes represent referrals that were considered for safeguarding adult reviews, but it was felt that the criteria had not been met. However, there was learning, there is learning from these people's deaths that can be used to support agencies and practitioners, and therefore some further work is being done to ensure that this learning is being embedded. So there's overlapping learning, and one of the main areas where we see learning overlapping, and you can see all those cases on the screen, it is about not being professionally curious. It is not something that is often used when working with the people shown, and it's constantly being highlighted in other reviews, national reviews, and in children's reviews. Now, professional curiosity is sometimes called respectful nosiness. It is not overstepping, your position. It's asking the right questions at the right time to support someone who needs that help. And professional curiosity is the ability to explore and understand what's happening with an adult, a child, or a family. It's about not accepting a situation as it first appears at face value, especially if it doesn't feel right. It's a combination of looking, listening, asking direct questions, showing genuine interest, checking out and reflecting on all of the information you've either heard or received. Now, asking why questions are really powerful, they're really good. And when it's not possible to ask the person themselves to gain an understanding into their decisions, reasoning, or actions, we should be professionally curious with other professionals, colleagues, and supervisors. Now, with this in mind, I'm going to pass you back to Lisa and Rachel, who are going to go over the multi-agency learning for both Mr. I and Lily. And it's just a reminder, if you want to use the chat to ask specific questions, we will attempt to answer, or we may well get back to you or signpost you. But just because you've got your mics off and your cameras off, it doesn't mean that we don't want to hear you. It just means that we're more likely to have a successful online event if we have cameras and mics off. And we're also recording the event. But what gets put in the chat does not actually get recorded, and that won't be shared. So if you want to use that, then please do. So Lisa, firstly, it's over to you.
Thanks again, Corinne. So multidisciplinary meetings was one of the key areas of learning for both Mr. I and Lily. There were opportunities for professionals working with both of these individuals that come together in a multidisciplinary meeting and share information and decision making and assess risk. If we use Lily as the example, when she was having a crisis, agencies liaised with each other and even shared some information. But that was it. There wasn't multi-agency working and decision making that would sustain engagement with Lily in services and attempt to prevent that crisis from reoccurring. We know that the police and housing were in contact with each other. We know that adult social care and MPFT were in contact with each other, and the GP had contact with Department for Work and Pensions, Midlands Partnership Foundation Trust, and Adult Social Care. The ambulance service were also called upon to support Lily during times of crisis. If any one of those agencies had arranged a multidisciplinary meeting to discuss Lily on the numerous occasions during the 2 years prior to her death, then multi-agency risk assessments, planning and decision making could have been implemented, and we will never know the difference that might have made. We're not talking about everyone from your service turning up to that one meeting. One person from your agency can have all of that information, and attend on behalf of colleagues within your agency. For both Mr. I and Lily, this would have been an opportunity to professionally challenge one another and make plans for next steps. if we look at the grid that Corinne's been showing throughout, we can see that this is an overlapping learning issue in numerous cases that are currently ongoing. In the individual situations that you can see on the screen, that are subject to review, you know, and we have to understand and remember that these boxes represent the death of a person, that, you know, that maybe that is a friend to somebody, you know, a partner, an uncle, a wife, a parent. And there were opportunities when a number of different professionals could have called a multidisciplinary meeting so that risks associated with that individual could have been discussed. However, they never happened. Even with online Teams meeting being an option, multidisciplinary meetings are still not happening, and yet they could have a significant impact on reducing the risk by an individual. Sharing the load, sharing the worries, the concerns, the plans and the frustrations are better than working in silos. Any professional, you know, can call one of these meetings. The risk responsibility does not have to lie with just one individual, one agency, one professional. It can and should be shared. It should be discussed and it should be reviewed, you know, regularly. As I said, any individual professional can call a multidisciplinary team meeting. Don't wait for somebody else to do it. There is an agenda template in the self-neglect guidance that can be followed. Please, please, if you take nothing else from today, please call those meetings.
A person who self-neglects will often have lived their life this way for a long time. There will have been events in their life, possibly traumatic, which have led to them living the way that they do. The person may not want to change the way they live. They may see nothing wrong with the way they live. They may not accept the help and support which you are offering. It is important to build a relationship with the person, get to know them and what is important in their life. When you can understand why the person is living the way they do, this will help inform the approaches to responding to their circumstances. Any decisions about ending support must be carefully considered. If another colleague or team will be involved, ensure that there is a robust handover. If there won't be any further involvement with that person, ensure that this decision is supported by your line manager. Involvement shouldn't end if there is significant risk to the individual.
So now we're going to look at mental capacity. So whilst professionals should assume that an individual has capacity unless it's proven otherwise, there were clear indications and knowledge in Lily's situation that she had an impairment of the mind or brain. This impairment could well have affected her ability to make decisions during periods of crisis, and therefore this should have led to a fuller assessment of capacity being carried out. Recording someone's ability to make or not make a decision is also essential. So you should be very clear about how you reached your assessment when capacity has been assumed. And if it was assessed, how you did that assessment. So you cannot just record Mr. I was deemed to have capacity, as capacity is time and decision specific. Therefore, you need to record what decision the individual had the capacity to make. So Mr. I was deemed to have capacity to make decisions about his care and treatment, or where he lived, or his finances. And again, that was something that was picked up in both of the reviews.
So now Corinne will take you to another Mentimeter.
So this is all about the self-neglect guidance. So Lisa, would you mind putting the hyperlink in the chat or scan the QR code? And this time it's all anonymous, but you can only pick one option. So read those 7 options and choose the one that best fits you, please. So we've got 106, 114, 120. I'll just wait for a few more until I share the screen with you. So we're still waiting for more people, but we have got 150 responses, and thank you for that. So we have got 58 of you who use the guidance. There's 47 of you that don't know it existed. 41 of you that don't know where to find it. So if you're choosing the one that best suits you, you knew it existed, but you don't know where to find that. And this is so helpful to us to know, to flag it up, to know where we've got to do the work to make sure that you know about it. There was 4 of you that the guidance is too long. Now, some others of you might have thought that that was too long, but the other one was much more relevant to you. But it's good to know that. And at the moment, the guidance still stands as it is, but the guidance is also being reviewed. So there are some of you, the guidance is too difficult to follow. So in its new format, it is going to be shorter and more easy to navigate. There are 2 of you that don't agree with the guidance. And if you wanted to put your email in the chat,
I will,
so that people can, what is it that you don't agree with it? That can form part of the, that can form part of the review. However, we can't just say there's people who don't agree with it. We need you to be specific. So if you at that
please
point,
be honest. It's really important that we know what it is, what the issues are, so that we can address them.
Thank you. So, and it's good to know that people have regular access to a computer, because it is sometimes what we hear, that people in particular roles don't have access to a computer. They might have a shared one at work, but they don't get to access it regularly. So it's good to know that you all have. So thank you for that. And that is really 161 of you have responded, and we're grateful for that. Thank you. So back to you, Rachel.
Thank you. So another area of overlapping learning is that in the reviews that are identified on the screen, the self-neglect guidance was not used, but could have provided practitioners who were working with the individuals with some guidance and support, which may have helped both them and the individual that they were working with. This guidance, as we've said, is currently under review, but while this is happening, it is essential that the version that's available is used.
Thank you. So before I go on to that, there are lots of comments in the chat about the self-neglect guidance. that I will put the link to the current guidance in the chat before the end of the session. I will say there is lots and lots of work. There's people on this call that are involved in that review, including myself and Rachel, and lots of other people. Once that we've done all that work, we will be going out to consultation with practitioners and, you know, about how we've done and what else needs to change and those sorts of things. So, you know, it is going to be a massive collaborative piece of work. We are hoping to get that done. We've done a lot of work, so I don't think we've got a lot more to do before we send out the newer version for consultation. So please bear with us, but in that, you know, in that we are addressing the fact that, you know, people ring up and say we want a multidisciplinary meeting, and agencies are saying, oh no, we're not involved. What we're addressing that within that guidance around, you know, how to escalate those sorts of things. So there's lots of information in there, but we're also addressing that within the adult protection oversight group around making sure that all partners are buying into multidisciplinary meetings. So there's a lot of work going on. So we are getting that work done. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Corinne, I digress. She'll be frowning at me in a minute. So in terms of developing good relationships, so no health or social care professionals developed a good relationship with Mr. I, although he was a very popular and well-respected member of his community. You heard, however, that with Lily in September of 2020, a compliance officer from Sevenside Housing began visiting Lily weekly as there was a risk to her losing her property because of her refusing access to do the safety checks. This officer showed true persistence. She not only sent the letters that she legally had to send, but she would visit Lily and explain things through the window about what the letter contained and why. She would stand on the doorstep and outside the window. She talked to Lily even though she got no response. And she explained everything that was going to happen, including that entry was going to be forced if Lily did not allow the workers in to do the property when they were due. And as these things were happening, she was also explaining why they were happening. In April of 2021, when entry had to be forced by the officer, by the officer and the electrician, that officer sat on the stairs and explained to a very distressed Lily why it had happened and what was going to happen next. And on the next visit by that compliance officer and a maintenance worker, Lily had actually left the door open. In July of 2021, Lily began to engage and communicate with that officer, and this engagement did continue. And that officer was actually the last person to see Lily alive. And patient persistent is I think the phrase that we'd use in terms of what was shown by that officer. With workloads as they are for all professionals on this learning event. I understand that time is a factor, but these people deserve our time. They must have our time, and that gentle persuasion that helps to build a good relationship does take time and persistence. And I'm now going to cover the multi-agency learning that was just specific to Lily's circumstances rather than overlapping between Lily and Mr. I. So these were just specific to Lily. Although are obviously specific to a number of others as well. With Lily, she had been known to services all of her life. You know, she had experienced childhood trauma, and professionals, you know, needed to approach her with that knowledge of her starting point. You know, her starting point was definitely one of distrust, powerlessness, and fear. And there will be other people that you work with that will need this level of understanding. And there is information on the Padlet around how to work in a trauma-informed way, and also on the learning briefing that's produced, there was a really good Vimeo clip around working in a trauma-informed way for you.
And that is on the Padlet handout 1, Lisa.
Thank you. In terms of Lily's diagnosis, different agencies had different diagnoses recorded for Lily, and this would have been known if an multidisciplinary meeting had been held. But as Lily's presentation changed, as her letters became more accusatory and more erratic, her periods of crisis became more often, and her resistance was more regular, then a reassessment of her mental health condition would have been helpful, so that everyone had a very clear understanding about how to work best with her, how to engage with her, and how to support Lily best moving forward. Lily didn't communicate in the way that professionals and us as regular, we all like to communicate verbally and talk to each other, but Lily didn't communicate in that way. She communicated her trauma through writing long and often very rambling letters to different professionals. On occasion, these letters were followed up by visits from professionals. However, on other occasions, they weren't. They were simply filed on a computer system and not acknowledged, as Lily tried, they weren't acknowledged that Lily was trying to explain what had happened to her and how she was feeling and thinking about things. Letters need to be accepted and considered as potential evidence of someone's deteriorating mental health, and indicate the need for further assessment and referrals to specialist services. By understanding a person and their diagnosis, where they're coming from, building a good relationship with them, and discussing them with colleagues in a multidisciplinary meeting, an appropriate assessment of their need and next steps to support them can be planned. So I'm now going to pass back to Rachel, who will cover the multi-agency learning for Mr. I.
Thanks, Lisa. Executive function is often described as the management system of the brain. Mr. I said that he would get his utilities connected and that he would contact his GP if unwell, but he did not. Mr. I appeared to understand the decisions he was making, but he did not carry them out. Some people will talk the talk, but not walk the walk. When this happens, detailed capacity assessments should be completed. Try to find out why certain tasks haven't been done and what support is needed. Capacity is time and decision specific. The reviews displayed have identified learning regarding the impact that conditions which affect the frontal lobe have on executive capacity. Someone may be able to talk the talk, but can they walk the walk? There is learning relating to individuals' capacity during a mental health crisis and when they are under the influence of drugs or alcohol. There is also important learning regarding when a capacity assessment is required and the recording of capacity assessments by practitioners, the fullness of these, and just recording that somebody was deemed to have capacity is not sufficient. Record all concerns. Record what you see, what you hear, what you feel, and your response. It may be that you are the only person to be allowed to enter the individual's home and to see how they are. If this is so, record the home conditions and use the clutter rating tool if there are signs of hoarding. The clutter image rating is a pictorial tool to determine the amount of clutter in a person's home. It shows a series of images depicting rooms in various stages of clutter, numbered from 1, when there is no clutter, to 9 when there is severe clutter. Hoarding becomes a problem when it is affecting the person's everyday health, well-being, and puts them or others in danger. For example, the person is unable to use their kitchen, bedrooms or bathroom, and cannot access rooms or escape if there is a fire. This shows the difference when there is no clutter on image 1 and how this escalates on clutter image rating number 7. Working with someone who is self-neglecting is hard and risky. You won't always know what to do. It might feel like you've tried many approaches, but none have made a significant difference. You might not sleep at night worrying about the person, but you're not on your own. You'll need supervision, specialist advice, and a process to escalate circumstances when complex and/or there is significant risk. Complex self-neglect circumstances, or where there is a risk of significant risk, will require a multi-agency response. Someone self-neglecting may appear to have unmet care needs. A social worker will offer to complete a care needs assessment. If the person refuses, the social worker has a duty to complete this assessment under Section 11 of the Care Act if the person lacks capacity to refuse the assessment and an assessment would have been in the person's best interests, or if the person is experiencing or at risk of abuse or neglect. It's good to know this so that this can be raised with adult social care if someone is refusing the care needs assessment and there is significant self-neglect risks. Fires in the home are devastating in terms of loss of life, your home, possessions, and a family's history. You need to be aware of fire risks within the home. Mr. I's door was inaccessible due to clutter, meaning that getting out in the event of a fire would have been difficult. Other fire risks can include overloaded sockets, smoking, candles, and other reasons. When fire risks are apparent, the partner agency fire safety checklist should be completed as it asks about fire risks and whether the person wants a visit from Shropshire Fire and Rescue Service. I'll hand you back to Corinne.
Thank you so much, Rachel. So what we're going to do now, Lisa's going to put a link to Mentimeter in the chat. Now, this gives you a chance to think about a response and to write your response, and you can have multiple responses if you want. But remember that it is anonymous, and we would like to hear your thoughts after hearing firstly about Mr. I and Lily's circumstances, and then hearing the multi-agency learning. And then after, I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that. And then I'm going to ask you to think of some questions that you can either put in the chat, or bearing in mind that this is a recorded event, I'm going to, if any of you want to open your mic and ask a question to either of the authors, Lisa or Rachel, then please do that. Okay, so well, I'll just wait for your responses to come in.
Somebody's been unable to access the Mentimeter. I've put the link back in the chat again.
Thank you, Lisa. And there's always the QR code there. So we've got 85, 87 responses so far. Okay, I'm going to share these. And I will actually put these on the Padlet as well. As you are reassured, it is completely anonymous and we're still getting responses. 124 responses from 106 people. So thank you that those have submitted more than once. But what I'm seeing is so many overlaps in what you're saying. The multi-agency working is absolutely essential. Why can't I scroll down? Oh, I'll do it that way. The importance of calling multidisciplinary team meetings. The recognition that there's still a lot of silo working, people working on their own. And you can read most of those learning briefings and safeguarding adult reviews. Indeed, quite a lot of the children's reviews as well, the local safeguarding child practice reviews and the rapid reviews. These issues are coming again and again and again, not just locally in Shropshire, but nationally as well. There's recognition that we don't always get it right, no matter how hard we try, we don't always get it right. But the important thing is that we do our best to. Again, so many people recognising the importance of multidisciplinary team meetings. And there's quite a lot of recognition here about the pressures of time and the pressure to close cases. But different ways of saying we need to work together in a joined up way, an MDT approach. And considering you're all in separate, apart from our 5 colleagues that are in the same room, you are all based all over Shropshire. So there's so many similarities here. And within early help services, you know, it's given you food for thought that there's a lot to think about with the timescales that you're given. Thank you for, you know, sharing that. And it's really helpful that you know that you can actually either suggest or even organise a multidisciplinary meeting. It's really important that you all know that. I'm sorry if I'm going too fast for some of you. There's a lot of recognition in your comments that they're about the lack of understanding of mental health and people reaching out for support.
Corinne, I like the leave no stone unturned. You know, that goes hand in hand with self-neglect. Really difficult. You need to try lots of approaches. And that's why multi-agency, you're going to give each other, you know, different ideas of things to try so that you definitely leave no stone unturned.
It's really important, isn't it? Thank you, Rachel. And it's good to know that there was somebody here who actually worked with Lily. Because obviously every image that we've used it doesn't give away that person's true identity. But if you know the person, and you know their circumstances, and thank you for coming. It is confusing, isn't it? There's a lot of stuff when we look about the processes, the policies, and the guidance. There's a lot of info. Do you know what? Nobody can take it in one go. It's about knowing it's there, and it's about chipping away and knowing that it exists, reading through it when you can, because they are written. Some of them, yes, some of you are saying that it is too long, but you know what? It is written it's written to be helpful. And if it's long at the moment, I mean, they're finding a way to make it more succinct. But if it's long, it's because it's important. Nobody will bombard you with information that you don't need, that you don't need, or that isn't useful. It is all relevant, and like I said, nobody can take it in one go. It's about chipping away.
And we've got information in the chat with regards to any colleague being able to attend the self-neglect and hoarding forum, and the email address is in there. So if you're working with someone and would benefit from attending that forum, the details are in the chat.
Thank you. And what I will do, I will take those details out of the chat, and I will add them to handout 1, so that when you get, so everything on the Padlet, the link when this will be available to view, when this whole learning event will be able to view, that will be on the Padlet. Handout 1 is full of useful links, everything that you need to click on to get the information in Shropshire, and anything that's in the chat, I will pop that in as well. So that's all there.
I have put my email address in the chat for anybody who wants to email me anything around the guidance about what they don't agree with, or if they've got any issues they want us to focus on.
That's really helpful. Thank you, Lisa. And the comments, sadly, this is all too familiar, and people aren't confident. I mean, we had to do something different, and this learning event is something different. This is our way of recognizing what can be done differently to get people together, to share the learning, and to helpfully, avoid this happening in the future, and to really, to really highlight the issue. And there's another learning event coming up for anybody who works in adults and children's services, and indeed community safety, on the 13th of November. That's all about professional curiosity. It'll be the same format, open to everybody, and 2 hours. What can we cover in 2 hours? So we agree with you. And let's hope that this can start to change, be the change. What do they say? Be the change you want to see. Isn't that a little saying? I love
just
those
want to
little
say
sayings.
on there, Corinne, you've got somebody who said, you'll still come across clients who don't wish to engage. Absolutely, and that is the nature of the work that you face. However, if you work with multiple individuals, work together as a team, you can come up with different strategies. There are different personalities within that group who can come up with different ideas, and look to find perhaps different ways to attempt to engage them. It's not about them refusing to engage with you. It's about what professionals can do to try and engage that individual. And we're not saying that you're going to be able to ever stop anybody ever dying again, but actually it's about doing everything that can be done you know, and working together as a collective group of individuals, to look at what the missed opportunities were, and come together, and look at what can be done differently, to try and engage individuals who are notoriously, you know, have not wanted to work with professionals before. Actually, it's about finding what is the way in, you know, and it, you know, that, as I said, that 8 months, that compliance officer knocked on the door, talked through windows, talked through, you know, the door, and that was what happened. But you know, that there needs to be opportunities to look at what can be done, and sometimes, you know, because people draw people in and then push them away and refuse services, and I appreciate that services are at their limits, it's not the opportunity to go, okay, right, case closed, because this person we can help because they're saying I want your help. You know, it's about what can be done to try and find a way to engage that individual.
And thank you. Rachel and Lisa, do you want to respond to the non-statutory service through through trying everything? They still, you know, interpreting that they're still working in a silo because they actually cannot get services to be involved in the first place, let alone willing to come to a MDT meeting.
Yeah, so the current the work that we're doing on the multidisciplinary meeting guidance is, and we're working with the adult protection oversight group, to get this agreed, is that when an agency calls an MDT, or asks for an MDT, even if somebody hasn't, you know, isn't known to a service, when they ask for an for an agency to be involved, these people are to come, you know, agencies are to come to the table, to discuss this individual, and if they don't come, that's an automatic escalation, and that is what we're looking to get past through the adult protection group.
And so what you've got now, before that comes into before that's available, you have still got the escalation policy. So if you do not know about the escalation policy, read it, because it is there to support you in times like, you know, in times like that, when you're desperate to get that help and support, and you know, to get people together to have that conversation. Use the escalation policy. It's link number 1 on handout 1, and it will take you to that. It's a short document, but it's succinct. It's got a flow chart in it, and you know, it's one of those things that if you don't need it at that time, people probably won't use it. But when you do need it for situations like that, to escalate that you are calling multidisciplinary meetings and nobody is engaging, so how is that helping? That is what that is there for. Okay. Here we go. There's a lot of information there, isn't there? And I will put this on the Padlet, and I sent everybody an email yesterday. And when the Padlet is complete, I will, I mean, you will be able to access the Padlet now. You can access it anytime, but I will add things to it. And when it is complete, I will email you all again, and I will give you again the QR code, the link to this recording, the hyperlink to get to the Padlet, and you have got everything there. And you know, the handout 1, nothing on that Padlet is only for people that come here. You can share that. It's really important that we share the information that we've got. And you know, we can all talk about the lack of time, the lack of services, the lack of all sorts of things. But what's really important is that we do our best for individuals, children, adults, and families with what we've got. We can't conjure, you know, we'd be ridiculous if we said, oh yes, let's conjure up, you know, what's your wish list, you know, let's get you what you need. Unfortunately, we are where we are, we've got where we've got, and we just need to do our best. Okay, I think it's really important. Professional curiosity. Don't forget that that learning event in November.
Somebody's asked what time that is, Corinne.
10 till 12.
Thank you.
The link to book on to Eventbrite, it's completely free. The link is on the Padlet. My goodness, do you know what? I underestimated the time that it takes to get through 137 comments. But these are here for you. They're here for you. They will be on the Padlet within an hour of this event, finishing. So thank you. I'm going to remove them now, but thank you for everybody that that contributed. And you know, isn't it that the comment, no stone unturned? It is so, you know, I'm just proud of the picture that I chose, the reflective picture for you to think your thoughts, and there is the stone. Let's not leave any of them unturned. Okay, what I'm going to do, it was important that we did that. What I'm going to do is go to the multi-agency learning, and if we have got time with the remaining information, with the remainder of the morning, we will come to specific questions. But I just wanted to cover this. So if we look at the multi-agency learning, let us sum up everything that we've talked about. Lisa is going to put once again the Padlet link into the chat, and the QR code is there. If you've got a mobile device, whether that's a pad or a mobile phone, and even when this is available, you'll still be able to you know, from the video, you'll be able to pause the video, and scan the code, and everything will be there. So be the person who calls a multidisciplinary meeting. If others are invited and don't attend, then you need to escalate your concerns. Be the person who attends a multidisciplinary meeting, even if you're not the person who's currently working with that individual. So ensure that safe processes are in place around any transfer and closure processes, and that means staying involved. Be aware that as capacity is time and decision specific, then it can change. It's really important to familiarise with the SSCP website, where you'll find safeguarding processes, self-neglect guidance, working with risk, the adult safeguarding reviews and learning briefings, templates for the multidisciplinary meeting, and all the links you need are on the Padlet handouts. And I will include anything that's in the chat that you've added, links in the chat. If you want it to be included, I will include it. Pop anything there that you believe is relevant, and I will include it. So building a good relationship, it doesn't just happen. It takes time and it takes persistence. Approach people in the way that recognises the effect that trauma has had on them. Anticipate how our words and actions can either support them to heal and be resilient, or can cause further harm. So, and there's more. When you are again, this comes back to multidisciplinary meetings would have highlighted that different agencies had different diagnoses recorded for Lily. So meeting and sharing the information and worries and discussing and agreeing on plans would help in most situations. And reassessments of mental health conditions need to take place. So be aware and considerate of how the people you're working with are most comfortable communicating. Make a record of this and share during the multidisciplinary meetings. And it, you know, when I was putting this together about how to bring to life how Lily communicated and those handwritten letters, 35 pages of handwritten letters. I write 2 pages of notes or scribble 2 pages in my little diary, little a what is it? It's an A4. It's an A4 diary. And my hand's aching. Imagine 35 pages of handwritten letters. So when it's clear that a person is talking the talk but not walking the walk, detailed capacity assessments should be completed. And do look at the links which cover executive functioning, and there's some on handout 1, there's some really helpful videos there about executive functioning, which is they're really helpful. So discuss in supervision and use the escalation process to highlight circumstances that are complex and or that there is significant risk. Remember that if the person lacks capacity to refuse a care needs assessment, and carrying out the assessment would be in that individual's best interests, the social worker has a duty to complete this under Section 11 of the Care Act. Be aware of fire risks, and when these are apparent, the partner agency fire safety checklist should be completed and sent to the Shropshire Fire and Rescue Service. Again, this is all on handout 1. So what I'd like you to do, and this is the last Mentimeter, I'm going to ask Lisa to please put the hyperlink into the chat for you. And I really want to know, what are you taking away from this 2 hours? Thank you for engaging. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your Mentimeter comments. I'd really like to know, though, what you are taking away. And I think what's really important, not to disrupt your flow, but while we can appreciate the comments that you are making, I think we have to really be mindful that services, agencies, and those individuals within those services and agencies are doing their best every single day. And so I'd really like us to be mindful of when we use words or phrases like services are dismissive, a certain agency was dismissive of that situation, of that person, whether that's whatever that is. Can we be really mindful that people go to work every single day and do the best job that they can? I will share these comments on the screen in a moment. "95 comments so far." "102 comments, and I'm well aware that time is ticking. So I've shared that on the screen for you. So it's really good to know what you're taking away. In a word, persistence. That sums it up, doesn't it? 4 very powerful words. It's good to know that this briefing is clear. Rachel, Lisa, and I have put an incredible amount of time into this to make sure that it is clear, to make sure that the messages that haven't been getting across do get across, and to bear in mind that we are completely multi-agency, from every service that you could think of in children's services today, as well as adult services, as well as people who work within community safety. We're all here today. And it's really important that the messages are not patronising, that they are also not convoluted, that they are clear and concise. So that's really good to know. Multi-agency meetings are going to be called. I feel it. I feel it in my bones.
Somebody's
Don't
written
give
on
up.
there about writing an internal briefing for their company, and please, obviously, if that, if you want to do that, but the learning briefings that we have produced for each of these reviews are on the website, and obviously on the Padlet, and please feel free to use those as well. So absolutely, use the resources that have already been done as well.
Thank you. It's good to know that training is still being delivered. My role has changed from delivering training to putting together and facilitating these learning briefings for you all. And it was quite a job to think of, how are we going to get lots of people to interact, and I hope you feel that it has been interactive. We've got some of your some such good comments. So it's important to, find the time, isn't it? Do your best. Be as knowledgeable as you can be. Keep tapping away at those, keep tapping away at those policies and procedures. I sent everybody an email yesterday. My name's Corinne Chidley, and if anybody wants to send me an email about anything, then please do just reply to the email I sent yesterday. I have got the whole attendance list, so I will be emailing everybody when the Padlet's ready. Thank you.
I've also just put her email in the chat so you can all spam her.
Amazing. Thank you, Lisa. And aren't our authors and our speakers, Rachel and Lisa, their knowledge is phenomenal. So thank you for making the time to not only be here today, but to plan the event in such detail with me. Thank you.
Thank you to Corinne for making everything move the way it did.
Yeah.
Because we just talked, didn't we, Rachel? But Corinne made everything pretty and move when it should move. So thank you very much for that.
Definitely. Thanks, Corinne.
It's a
We've got
pleasure.
a hand up.
Good.
We had a
'Cause
hand up then. Somebody
we
wanted
had a
to
hand
speak.
out. I just wanted to say, all any of us want to do is improve the lives of adults and children in Shropshire. That's all any of us want to
Absolutely.
do. That is what we strive to do every single minute of the day. Whatever our role is, we're all here for a reason to make that happen.
Absolutely. We had somebody's hand up and then they took it down. Does somebody want to say something to one of us? All of us? Any of us?
Okay, I love this. Call a multidisciplinary meeting. Hopelessness is infectious. I love that. It is. Hopelessness is infectious. Be immune to that. Thank you. I will put all those responses on Padlet. And I just wanted to make sure that I shared the last slide. You will find all these on handout 6 and 7. Handout 6 is children's safeguarding contacts. Handout 7 is adults safeguarding contacts. And whenever they are updated, they will be updated on your Padlet. So that is the last slide. It is 11:59. I'm sure that Lisa, Rachel, and I will stay for a little while. But thank you for all of your input. Thank you. I know 2 hours. Yes, it's just 2 hours. It's not just 2 hours. We all know that. Time is precious, and we thank you for spending it with us this morning.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. Are you going to stop recording?
I am. I will stop recording now.
Thank you.